I always thought my wife, Melissa, and I had a solid marriage. We were together for nearly 10 years, and while we faced our share of challenges, we always seemed to bounce back. We shared a house in a cozy neighborhood, had a couple of dogs, and occasionally took trips to the mountains or the beach. On the surface, everything looked perfect. But lately, I noticed some cracks in our seemingly flawless facade. At first, it was subtle. Melissa started coming home late from work, claiming she was caught up with extra projects. I tried to be understanding. After all, I appreciated her ambition. But her late nights turned into weekends of sudden girl trips with friends I had never heard of. She didn't mention them until the last minute, and the excuses started to feel flimsy. The last straw was when she forgot the name of a restaurant we'd been to together. I watched her face flicker with confusion when I asked if she wanted to revisit it. The way she dismissed it felt wrong. She laughed it off, but I could see the tension tightening around her eyes. It nagged at me. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. I had been planning a surprise dinner for Melissa, but when I entered our home, the atmosphere felt off. The dogs barked excitedly, but instead of the warmth of her presence, I was met with an eerie silence. I found her phone on the kitchen counter, buzzing incessantly. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. The name Jake popped up on the screen. I didn't recognize that name at first, but then it hit me, an old coworker of hers. They'd been friendly, but I always sensed something deeper. I could feel a knot forming in my stomach. I didn't know what to do. My heart raced as I debated whether to dive deeper or put the phone back. I chose the former. I unlocked her phone. It was a risk, but my gut was screaming at me. Scrolling through her messages, I felt like I was unraveling a dark secret. The conversations with Jake were flirtatious, filled with emojis and inside jokes that felt like daggers to my heart. They were planning to meet up, exchanging details that made my blood run cold. The realization hit me like a freight train. She was cheating on me. In that moment, a wave of emotions crashed over me: anger, betrayal, confusion. I slammed her phone down, unable to breathe. My mind raced, thinking about everything I had done for her, the life we had built together. How could she betray me like this? I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting and I was powerless to stop it. The confrontation happened that night. I waited for her to come home, pacing the floor, trying to calm the storm inside me. When she walked through the door, her laughter died when she saw my expression. I knew she sensed something was off. She could feel the tension in the air. "Hey, babe, what's up?" she asked, her voice dripping with feigned cheerfulness. But I didn't respond. Instead, I held up her phone, my hands shaking with rage and hurt. "Who's Jake?" I demanded, my voice low and steady. Her face paled, and for a moment I saw genuine fear flash across her features. "What do you mean?" she stammered, attempting to play innocent. I threw the messages at her, the words hanging in the air like a noose tightening around her neck. "Don't play." "Stupid Melissa, I saw everything," I spat. "You're cheating on me, aren't you?" Her reaction was a mixture of anger and desperation. "It's not what it looks like, you're overreacting." She shot back, her voice rising. She tried to brush me off, but I wasn't having it. I wanted the truth. I demanded it. I wanted her to admit it, to confess her lies. As the truth began to unravel, I could see the mask she wore slipping away. She started flinging excuses, claiming it was just harmless flirting, that I was being controlling and paranoid. But it didn't matter how much she twisted her words. I could see the betrayal etched in her expressions. The emotional impact was a crushing weight on my chest. I felt shattered, as if my entire world had just crumbled down around me. I was left standing there, reeling from the confrontation. I wanted to scream, to cry, to make her feel the pain she had inflicted on me, but I held back. I knew that whatever I said in that moment wouldn't change the reality we now faced. The argument stretched long into the night. I felt like a puppet on strings, manipulated by anger and betrayal, desperately trying to gain control over the chaos that had erupted in my life. As she tried to deny the severity of her actions, I could feel the distance between us growing, almost palpable. The woman I thought I knew was slipping away, replaced by a stranger who had made a choice to betray me. "Melissa, this isn't just harmless fun," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even though the pain was clawing at my insides. "You've been lying to me." It's not just flirting if you're planning to meet him. She scoffed, her eyes narrowing. It's not like that. You're blowing this out of proportion. I told you Jake is just a friend. Just a friend. I echoed, disbelief fueling my anger. How many friends do you text at midnight with heart emojis? I waved her phone in the air like a flag of surrender, a reminder of the betrayal that lay within it. The silence that followed was deafening. She deflected, shifting the blame back onto me, claiming I was the reason she sought attention elsewhere. You've been so distant, I feel like I'm living with a roommate, not a husband, she claimed, throwing her hands in the air. I felt the hot sting of indignation wash over me. It was classic deflection, the very thing I'd read about in articles on infidelity. But hearing her say it felt like a blade cutting deep. Distance. You're the one who decided to create distance. You're the one who brought this on. I yelled, my voice breaking. I was hurt, angry, and confused. How could she twist this around on me? It felt like a betrayal piled on top of another, and I was left spinning. The rest of the night was a blur of accusations and defenses, her voice clashing with my pain. I could see the smugness in her eyes as she tried to maintain control over the situation, and it fueled my rage. How could someone who professed to love me be capable of such deceit? But then something changed. I took a moment to breathe, to step back from the firestorm of emotions. I considered the woman I had married, the laughter and the love we had shared. I thought about the sweet memories and the promises exchanged. It hurt to realize that someone I had trusted completely could so easily weave a web of lies. As the clock ticked deeper into the night, I finally felt a wave of sadness wash over me, drowning out the anger. I realized that I wasn't just angry with her, I was deeply heartbroken. I had invested my life and my love into this relationship. I had given her everything, and all I had received in return was betrayal. I needed to process this chaos. I needed to gather my thoughts and figure out what to do next. The thought of separation crossed my mind, but I wasn't ready to make that decision just yet. I wanted to scream, to vent, to tell her how much she had hurt me, but instead I walked away to the living room, hoping to find some peace in the silence. When I sat down on the couch, I stared blankly at the wall, grappling with the whirlwind of emotions. I felt utterly lost. How could I trust her again? Could I? I picked up my phone and started scrolling through old photos of us, searching for a glimmer of hope. But all I could see were happy moments tainted by the knowledge of her betrayal. Each picture seemed like a cruel reminder of what I had lost. I finally fell asleep on the couch, the weight of the world pressing heavily on my chest. The next morning I woke up groggy and disoriented. Melissa was already gone, likely off to meet Jake again. I felt a rush of anger and sadness all over again. The realization that she had chosen to spend time with him instead of facing the fallout of her actions made my blood boil. I needed to confront her again. I couldn't let her brush this under the rug as if it were nothing. I texted her, demanding she come home for a serious conversation. I was done with half-truths and excuses. I needed her to face me, to face the reality of what she had done. As I waited for her to return, I felt a growing determination inside me. I might have been the wounded party, but I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I was going to fight for my dignity, and I was going to get the truth out of her, no matter what it took. Path forward was murky, but I knew I had to take control of my life again. It was time for the next chapter. When Melissa walked through the door that evening, I could see the apprehension etched on her face. It was a stark contrast to her usual confidence, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction knowing that she understood the gravity of the situation. I stood up from the couch, arms crossed, and leaned against the wall as she entered. I wasn't going to let her slip away again. "Sit down," I said, my voice steady but firm. She hesitated, calculating her next move as if she were weighing her options. Eventually, she lowered herself onto the edge of the couch, avoiding my gaze. The tension in the room was palpable. "Why did you lie to me, Melissa?" I asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "Why did you think it was okay to betray our marriage?" She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, she looked down at her hands, fidgeting with her wedding ring. Her silence was deafening, feeding my anger. I felt like I was standing on a precipice, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to jump or pull back. I gave you everything, I continued, my voice rising a notch. I've been there for you, supported your dreams, and this is how you repay me, by sleeping with someone else. Finally, she met my eyes, her expression a mix of defiance and guilt. I didn't sleep with him, she stated, her voice shaky but her tone insistent. It's not like that at all. Then what is it like? I shot back, incredulous. Flirting, texting. What do you think that is? What do you think it means when you're planning to meet him? Her defense was weak, and I could see it crumbling beneath the weight of my accusations. It was just a stupid mistake, okay? I didn't think it would go this far, she replied, her eyes pleading for understanding. I thought I could handle it, that it wouldn't affect us. But then what? I interrupted, fed up with her evasiveness. You got caught, and now you're trying to minimize it. That's not how this works, Melissa. You need to own up to your actions. I'm not trying to minimize anything, she shouted back, her voice tinged with desperation. I was lonely. You've been so consumed with work and everything else. I felt neglected. I was taken aback. Her reason stung like a slap to the face. Lonely? I questioned incredulously. You think that justifies cheating? You could have talked to me about it. I would have listened. But instead, you chose to betray me. Tears began to fill her eyes, and I could tell she was fighting to maintain her composure. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I quickly pushed it aside. This wasn't about her feelings right now, it was about accountability. I didn't mean to hurt you, she cried, finally breaking down. I was trying to escape. I thought I could find something that I was missing. I thought it was just flirting, I thought. Her voice trailed off, and I could see her mind racing, scrambling for an excuse. She was floundering, and I wasn't about to let her off the hook that easily. You thought what? That I wouldn't find out, that it didn't matter. Because it does, Melissa. It matters, eh? I took a deep breath, trying to steady the tumultuous emotions swirling inside me. I had to make her understand the pain she had caused. This isn't just about you feeling neglected. You chose to cross a line, and now we have to deal with the consequences of that choice. Please, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I'm sorry, I'll do anything to fix this. Anything. I challenged, my heart racing. You think saying sorry is enough? You think you can just erase what you've done? I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes, she insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. Counseling? You think that's a magic fix? Counseling won't change the fact that you chose to betray me, I replied, shaking my head. You can't just throw around empty promises and expect me to forget. The silence that followed felt heavy, like a storm cloud waiting to burst. I looked into her eyes, searching for any sign of genuine remorse. Instead, I saw a woman who was panicking, realizing that her actions could cost her everything. I don't know if I can trust you anymore, I said finally. My voice barely a whisper. You've shattered everything we built together. I don't know how to move forward from this. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away, feeling the sting of rejection and betrayal. You can't just fix this with words, I added, my voice cold. You need to prove it. Actions speak louder than promises. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I will. I swear I'll do better. I'll prove to you that I can change, she said, desperation coloring her words. But in that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. I could either fight to salvage what remained of our marriage or start the painful process of letting go. Neither option was appealing, and I was left standing at a crossroads, uncertain of which path to take. The emotional turmoil was overwhelming, but I knew I had to decide soon, because every moment I lingered in this chaos was another moment wasted. The days that followed were a whirlwind of confusion and turmoil. I kept replaying our confrontation in my mind, searching for clarity in the chaos. Melissa's tears haunted me, but so did the betrayal. I felt like a ship lost at sea, tossed about by waves of anger, hurt, and faint hope. Each day felt like an uphill battle trying to navigate our new reality. Melissa was doing her best to show remorse. She suggested couples therapy, and after much hesitation, I reluctantly agreed. I thought it might help us untangle the web of lies and find a way to rebuild our trust. But inside, I was hesitant. The thought of sitting in a room with her and a complete stranger forced me to confront the reality that our marriage was in deep trouble. Our first session was awkward, to say the least. The therapist, Dr. Stevens, was kind but no nonsense. She encouraged us to express our feelings, and as I sat there, I felt a rush of frustration. Every word I said seemed tinged with pain, every sentence a reminder of what was lost. Melissa spoke about her feelings of loneliness, about how she had felt disconnected from me for so long. I listened, but it was hard to absorb her words without feeling anger bubbling beneath the surface. Loneliness is no excuse for infidelity. I countered during the session, my voice steady despite the anger simmering inside me. You don't cheat on someone you love because you feel neglected. You communicate. Melissa's response was defensive, as if she was still grappling with the reality of her actions. I know that now. I realize I messed up, but I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. Every session felt like pulling teeth. We went through the motions, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still minimizing her actions. It was like she was trying to find a way to justify what she had done rather than taking full responsibility for it. I found myself feeling more isolated than ever, trapped in a cycle of therapy sessions that often felt more like a chore than a means of healing. One night, after a particularly draining session, I came home feeling defeated. I plopped down on the couch, staring blankly at the television, not really watching. Melissa joined me, her presence heavy in the air. "Do you think it's really working?" she asked, her voice tentative. I turned to her, struggling to find words. "I don't know, I just feel stuck, like we're going in circles," I admitted, the weight of my frustration evident in my tone. "It's hard to move forward when I can't shake the feeling that you haven't fully owned what you did." She looked down, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "I'm trying, honestly, I just don't know how to fix this," she replied, her voice small. "I don't think we can fix it without honesty," I said, my heart starting to race again. "You need to be completely open about everything. No more lies, no more minimizing." "I promise I'll be honest," she said, her voice earnest. "I'll tell you everything you want to know." I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "Okay then, tell me everything about Jake. How long has it been going on? What did you two do together?" The tension in the room thickened. I could see her weighing her options, and for a moment I felt a sense of dread wash over me. "We just talked, okay? It wasn't serious. It was all just texting and flirting." "Nothing physical happened," she insisted, but the way she spoke felt rehearsed, almost like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I pressed on, feeling a mix of anger and desperation. "But you were planning to meet him. That means it was serious enough for you to consider it an option," I countered. "You made that choice." "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I thought it was just harmless fun." She snapped, frustration spilling over. "I didn't think you'd find out." "Once again, that's not an excuse," I yelled, my patience wearing thin. "I can't keep doing this, Melissa. I need you to be truthful with me, not just what you think I want to hear." The ensuing silence was suffocating. She looked down at her hands, and I could almost see the gears turning in her mind. "I never wanted to hurt you, I swear," she said finally, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake." As I stared at her, I felt the anger shift to a profound sadness. This wasn't the person I had married. This was someone caught in a cycle of guilt and denial. I had to wonder if I even knew her anymore. "I don't know if I can trust you, Melissa," I admitted, my voice low. The weight of those words hung heavy in the air, and Melissa looked at me, desperation etched across her features. "I'll show you I can change. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust." But I was tired of promises. I needed action. I couldn't keep working off hope alone. "Trust isn't given, it's earned. And right now, you're miles away from earning it back," I said, my voice firm. As she nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks, I felt an unsettling mixture of sympathy and resolve. I had to think about my own well-being, about what was right for me. The thought of letting go of our life together was terrifying, but the weight of betrayal was crushing me. I needed clarity, and I needed to figure out what I truly wanted from this situation. In the weeks that followed, the emotional turmoil didn't ease. Therapy sessions continued, but they were inefficient in bridging the gap that had formed between us. I found myself withdrawing emotionally, struggling to break down the walls I had built. I had to confront the truth. I was still deeply in pain, and I didn't know how to navigate the road ahead. Finally, it hit me one night as I scrolled through old photos of us. I couldn't keep holding onto something that might not exist anymore. I had to make a decision. I could either continue to fight for a marriage that felt increasingly fragile or start anew. Either way, I knew there was no turning back. I had to choose a path forward, and soon. The turning point came unexpectedly one evening as I sat alone in our living room, mulling over the countless what-ifs that had plagued me for weeks. I had spent hours in silence, the weight of our situation pressing heavily down on my chest. I replayed our conversations and therapy sessions in my mind, searching for the thread that could pull us back together. But each interaction felt like I was grasping at smoke, slipping through my fingers. That's when I received a text from Melissa. "Can we talk? I think I need to tell you something." It read. The moment I read those words, my stomach dropped. I didn't know whether to feel dread or curiosity. My instinct told me it was another attempt to manipulate the situation, but I also sensed an urgency in her message that struck a chord. "Okay," I replied, my heart racing. "When?" She suggested we meet at a nearby cafe, and I found myself both anxious and apprehensive about what she would say. As I drove to the cafe, I felt an array of emotions: fear, anger, but also a flicker of hope. Maybe this would be the conversation that turned everything around. Maybe it would be the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. When I arrived, she was already seated at a table in the corner, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. As I approached, I could see the anguish on her face. It was different from before. This was more raw, more real. I sat down and waited for her to speak, acutely aware of the tension hanging thick in the air. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her voice shaky. "About us, about everything." I felt a rush of impatience. And she took a deep breath. "I've realized that I haven't been fully honest with you about Jake." My heart raced as I leaned in, ready to absorb whatever confession was about to spill from her lips. "What do you mean?" I didn't just flirt with him. We did meet up a few times," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It never went beyond kissing, but I need you to know the truth." Her confession hit me like a freight train. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. "You met up with him, after everything we've talked about?" I asked, struggling to keep my composure. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "I was lost and I didn't know how to handle it. I thought I could compartmentalize it, that I could keep it separate from you, but it was wrong. I shouldn't have done it, and I'm so sorry." My mind raced, processing the weight of her words. The betrayal cut deeper than I had anticipated. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. "You put everything at risk, Melissa, everything we built. You have to understand how much this hurts." I know, I can't change the past, but I want to make things right," she pleaded, her voice rising with desperation. "I can't keep hiding this from you. I want to be transparent, and I want to work on us. I understand if you can't forgive me, but I need you to know the truth completely." As she spoke, part of me felt a strange sense of relief that she had finally come clean, but that relief was overshadowed by the realization of the depth of her betrayal. "You don't get it, do you? It's not just about being honest now. You've already broken my trust," I replied, my voice trembling with emotion. "I know it's too late for that, but I want to prove to you that I can earn your trust back," she said, reaching across the table. I pulled my hand back, feeling the sting of rejection. "Please, I need you to understand how serious I am about fixing this." I stared at her, wanting desperately to see the woman I fell in love with, the partner I believed would always choose me. Instead, I felt anger and pain battling for dominance within me. "You can't just ask for forgiveness and expect everything to go back to normal. Trust doesn't work that way." "I'm not asking for it to go back to normal. I want to build something new, something stronger. I want to make it up to you," she insisted, her eyes pleading with me for understanding. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, weighing my options. I realized that I had to prioritize my own well-being above all else. I didn't want to remain stuck in a toxic cycle, constantly questioning her motives and integrity. "I can't keep living like this. I need time to think about what I want, what we both want," I said finally, my voice steady. Melissa's face fell, and I could see the weight of my words hitting her hard. "Please, don't do this," she begged, her voice trembling. "I'm willing to put in the work. I just need a chance to show you I can change. And I need a chance to figure out whether I want to give you that chance," I replied, my heart heavy. She nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I understand, I need space," I interrupted, feeling the finality of my words wash over me. I need to figure out if this is worth fighting for or if it's time to let go. The look in her eyes shifted from desperation to a realization of the gravity of our situation. I could see her processing the idea that our relationship might not survive this. And as painful as that thought was, it was also liberating. As I left the cafe, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I knew I had a long road ahead of me, but I also knew that I had to think clearly about what I wanted for my future. It wouldn't be easy, and the uncertainty still loomed large, but I was determined to navigate this journey on my terms. I had to reflect on everything we had been through, the love we once shared, and whether I could ever genuinely forgive her. It was time for me to take control of my own narrative. The following weeks were a blur of introspection and soul-searching. I spent a lot of time alone, sifting through the wreckage of my emotions. I sought solace in my hobbies, revisiting old passions that had long taken a backseat to our relationship. I started running again, pushing my body to exhaustion as a way to channel my feelings. Each mile felt like a small step toward reclaiming my identity, a journey I had neglected for far too long. It was during these runs that I began to gain perspective. I contemplated our marriage, the love we had shared, and the betrayal that had turned everything upside down. I thought about Melissa and how she had once been my partner, my confidant. But somewhere along the way, that connection had frayed, and it became painfully clear that both of us had neglected the relationship in different ways. As I navigated the emotional landscape, I realized that I had to prioritize my own well-being. I had been so consumed with trying to understand Melissa's feelings and motivations that I neglected to affirm my own boundaries and desires. The realization struck me hard. I deserved more than a half-hearted attempt at reconciliation. I needed honesty, respect, and a partner who was fully committed to rebuilding our foundation, if that was even possible. One afternoon, I found myself sitting at a cafe, sipping coffee and contemplating what I wanted. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. I started writing down my thoughts and feelings, trying to articulate what I needed to move forward. As I wrote, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I didn't want to live my life in a constant state of distrust or resentment. That evening, I called Melissa and asked her to meet me again. This time, it was going to be about setting boundaries and establishing clarity. I needed her to understand where I stood and what I needed from her moving forward. When I arrived at the cafe, she was already waiting, her expression a mix of hope and anxiety. I took a deep breath and sat down, feeling the weight of the moment settle around us. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice tentative. "I'm not here for small talk," I replied, cutting straight to the chase. "I wanted to talk about us, about where we go from here." Her eyes widened slightly and I could see her brace herself for my words. "I understand. I want to hear what you have to say. I've done a lot of thinking," I began, my voice steady. "I've realized that trust is something that needs to be rebuilt, and it can't just happen with words. It has to come from action. And right now I don't know if I can give you the chance to prove yourself." Melissa looked down, her face falling, but I pressed on. "I need time. Time to figure out if I can forgive you. Time to see if this relationship can be saved. I can't just jump back into the way things were." Her eyes glistened with tears as she nodded slowly. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes." "Actions, not words," I repeated, wanting to drive the point home. "I need to see you fully committed to making changes, not just for me, but for yourself. I don't want to be the reason you change. You have to do it for you." "I promise I will," she said, her voice cracking. "I don't want to lose you. I'll show you that I can change." We spent the remainder of the afternoon discussing boundaries. I laid out what I needed from her: transparency, accountability, and the understanding that rebuilding trust would take time. She listened intently, her face a mix of remorse and determination. As we talked, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for healing, but I also knew that I had to remain cautious. This wouldn't be a quick fix. It would be a long and arduous journey, and I was willing to take that journey only if I saw genuine effort from her side. After our conversation, I left the cafe with a mixture of emotions. I was still heartbroken, but I also felt empowered. I realized that I didn't have to settle for a relationship that left me feeling uncertain. I had the power to choose my path. In the weeks that followed, Melissa made an effort to demonstrate her commitment to change. She sought individual therapy while continuing couples counseling with me. We communicated more openly than before, even when the discussions were painful. I saw glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, and it gave me hope that we might be able to rebuild brick by brick. Yet, I learned to keep my expectations in check. Healing takes time, and I was going to rush it. I focused on myself as well, rebuilding my self-esteem and reminding myself of my worth. I sought counsel from friends and family, leaning on their support during this tumultuous time. Eventually, I found myself at a crossroads again. One evening, as I reflected on everything we had been through, I realized I had changed too. I was stronger, more self-aware, and ready to make choices that aligned with my values. I had grown from the experience, even if it came from a place of pain. I decided to move forward with Melissa, not because I wanted to save our marriage at all costs, but because I believed that with genuine effort, we could build something new together, a relationship rooted in honesty and respect. As I navigated this new chapter, I kept reminding myself, trust is earned and healing is a journey. I was ready for the work ahead, whatever that may look like. I had learned that love is not just about holding on. Sometimes, it's about letting go and finding yourself again in the process.